now you can see that our data source is created and the data processing is completed. So Amazon is saying that they have found a potential issue with our input data. So let's see what that is. So it's saying that out of the 14 attributes, for one attribute, we have some missing values. So this was deliberately kept by me so that we can see how missing values are identified by AML. So let's look into some more data that this data source connection has given us. So data source information says the ID of the data source, the name of the data source. You can change it if you want to. The creation time, the completion time, and the compute time of your data source, the status. The an important thing to see here would be the log, but before that, we'll see our input schema, how it has read. So let's view this. So we see that it looks fine to us. It looks okay. That's the way we had inputted this in our S3 bucket. So it has read it in the same format. So this is what it is. And we'll see the logs. So if you have some issue with your data loading, you can probably go to the logs and see if there was some issue. So looks like all of this has finished pretty fine. So starting job, the job, data source, so the ID, income, this is succeeded, post processing completed successfully. So this has done it in two parts. So looks like we are good with this. We'll go back to our data source information. So now we see another important thing here is our target information. So this information is about our target variable. So the name of our target variable was exited. So it's given here, and the target type was binary. This is also being shown. And now we can see the distribution of this variable here. So you can click on this and it will take you to the chart here. So now we can see the distribution that we have for our records in our data set. So as I said, we have 9,000 odd records here. So we can see that there are 7,135 records which have exited as zero. So these people have not exited the company. And 1,800 odd records which say that the person has exited the company, which is one value for that. So yeah, this is what this shows us, and it gives a good insight into how our data looks like. We'll go back again to the same place. Now we can see all the other information as well. What was the input data, number of files, and so on. We have our processing information, the number of records seen, 8,992. Records that failed to process, we have 0 records which failed to process. And we have the attribute information. So the number of total attributes were 14, out of which binary were 3, categorical were 3, numeric 7, and text 1. So this is what comes in the first page once you connect to your data source and the data processing is completed. Let's move on to the other tabs that we have in this data insights page. So we have already seen target distributions. We'll see the missing values. So as you can see here, we have this attribute balance, which is of type numeric and has 5 rows which have missing values. You can see the distribution here. So there are different bins which have different values. So this is balance between 0 and 20,000, 20,000 to 40,000, 40,000 to 60,000, 60,000 to 80,000, and so on. So this tells you that what is the most common balance that people have. So that is lying between 0 to 20,000. So most of the employees that the customers that this bank has have balance between 0 to $20,000. So this is how the balance attribute looks. So we will go back, and so as I had explained before that for numeric attributes, Amazon ML doesn't make doesn't reject the observation, but it will assign it a default value or creates another attribute and assign it 1 so that it can learn patterns from the missing occurrence. So this is what it mentions here. And if it was a target attribute, then will Amazon ML would have rejected our record, but there has no such thing happened. I think we'll move on with this data set. So let's see what other attribute information we have. Next, we'll go to seeing the attributes. So we'll click on binary and we see that we said that we have three binary attributes, and we discussed about correlations to the target, that how much predictive power this particular attribute has on my target attribute. So since exited is my target attribute, the correlation to target doesn't matter. So that's why it's not available. So this gives a percentage of how much true values are there. So we have already seen it's 21% from the calculation of the distribution. It was some 1800 odd records which had true values. There are zero invalid values. We can see the distribution here for this. So this is the same that we had seen before. And we have has credit card attribute. So again, it says that correlations to the target is zero. That means it's not a highly predictive attribute and has little power in judging my target attribute. I can again see the distribution of this variable here. So this is a really good way that you have your visualization happening once you load your data. So it's AML in this sense is pretty handy as you get to know what your data looks like. So is active member, again you get the correlations and the other metrics. Next we have the same thing for our categorical variables as well. So you see now that we had three categorical attributes: gender, geography, and row number. So row number, as we had assigned it as a row identifier, we wouldn't be getting a correlation to target for this, but for others, AML has generated the correlations to target. So since it's categorical variable, we don't get a true percentage for this, but instead we get which is the most frequent category. So we see that for gender, male is the most frequent category. That is, a lot of data that we have is the most common gender that we have is male. So there are more customers who are male as compared to females. And the second is geography. We see that the most frequent country that these customers belong to is from France. So this is the France here mentioned as the most frequent category. We also see the unique values. So since this is categorical attribute, we see that there are only two values which are present in gender, so which is male and female. So in geography, we have four unique values. So that is France, Germany, and two other countries. So let's preview this data for geography here and see what it says. So we have France here with 4,000 odd records, and Spain and Germany, and I think this one the least favorite, which is just three records. Yeah, so this is how my data here looks like. I'll go on with the numeric attribute category as well. So let's see how the data looks here. Yeah, so we have a lot of attributes, which is 7 attributes in numeric category. Again, it has given me a correlations to target. So looks like number of products is highly predictable to the target. So it's an important variable to me. And this is how I can judge all my relations to the target value. So we have some missing values reported earlier as well. So we can see here as well that balance has 5 missing values, which is 1% of my entire data set. So yeah, we won't be going back and correcting this as we don't have input data for that. So let our AML model learn patterns from these missing values as well. So there are no invalid values. So in case there would have been, we would have had it mentioned here. Another point that is added in numeric attributes is range. So if we have observed that we didn't have the missing values or invalid values column in categorical data, because as I mentioned before, in case for categorical data set or for our target attribute, if we had an invalid value or a missing value, AML will reject that record. So we wouldn't be having it here as that record is not read.